first thing is what I call significance depletion. Now, what we're talking about are the things that are the most, how shall I say this? They are the worst enemies of narcissists. Not necessarily narcissism, but the individuals. I mean, the people. They hate these things. Now, we got three of them. And we're just going to kind of count down to number one. Not going to spend a lot of time at it, but the very first of these things that came to mind was the depletion of their significance, because virtually every narcissist that I have ever met needs to have significance. They need to feel significant. Why is that? Well, because they don't. They don't feel significant. They feel inferior. There is something inherently wrong with them, they believe. There's something missing. There's something more to life. And so they've got to grab that thing by exaggerating their persona, imagining that they are somebody that they are not, to the point where sometimes I think they even begin to believe their own fantasy. So the world is their kingdom. The world is their realm. The narcissist is the king or queen of the universe. They're kind of like a god, in their minds. They will never admit that because, well, maybe they will admit it. They just won't put it in those terms because they don't want to come across as arrogant. Not if they're covert narcissists, but they want to come across as convincing to themselves that they are significant, better than everyone else. That is such a tragedy because to do that, what do they have to do? Well, they got to lie. They got to make this stuff up. They got to come up with some scenario or series of scenarios that propels them to that higher echelon in the social hierarchy of, everybody, wherever they happen to be. I mean, just pick a spot. The workplace, family, maybe it's a church, maybe it's the community, maybe it's the neighborhood, maybe it's some political group or cause that they belong to, but they always have to be, in their mind, the most significant person. I knew a guy one time, I believe this guy honestly is a true blue hardcore narcissist, but he went to a funeral, and I was at the same funeral, and I read what he wrote on his blog about that funeral, and it seemed like it was all about him. Seriously. I mean, when I read what he wrote, he talked about how other people greeted him. I mean, he said something about the poor guy that lost his life, had to justify himself, but he noticed how other people admired him. Not the guy who passed away, but the narcissist. The funeral, it seems, was all about him. And you've been around these people. You go on vacation with them. And by the way, if you really want to know somebody's personality, take a road trip with them. You'll find out probably sooner than you care to. But keep in mind, they're also finding out about your personality. But that being aside, when you go on a road trip with a narcissist, guess what? It's all about them. It's their road trip, and everybody else is going where they want to go. It's not your vacation, it's not your travel, it's not your picnic, it's not your outing, it's their outing, and everyone else is just kind of joining, everyone else is auxiliary. They need that feeling of significance. And if it begins to slip, even in the slightest, and I've seen this time and time again, that the narcissist will fight. Maybe not physically, but they will, let's use this word, they strive. They become almost anxious. They will go to extremes to retain their position of significance. So the depletion of that significance is their worst enemy. I like to use the analogy of a tire. You've heard me say this before. A tire that is losing air constantly. It's got a slow leak. So it constantly has to be supplied with new air. Where do they get that significance? Where do they get that air supply? They get it from you. That's why we call you supply. Because you are supplying the air. You're the pump that keeps pumping up their ego, keeps pumping up their sense of significance. And they do that by putting you down. Now, what do? Have you ever used a hand pump for a bicycle tire? What do? You take the handle of the pump and you pump it up and down, right? That's what they are doing, only they put pressure on the down. And the only time you lift up the handle on the pump is so you can push it down again. That is how a narcissist sees you, as somebody to be put down so they can take the air out of you and put it into themselves. All right. Second thing is this, kind of similar but not really the same, and that is reputation loss. That is the enemy of the narcissist, because he or she lives or dies in their mind, in their way of thinking, by their reputation. They must be the most important person in the eyes of others. Now, I got to stop and say this, because every time I talk about reputation, it's important, I feel, to point out that reputation and character are not only different, often they are exact opposites. And I found that in every narcissist I've ever dealt with, contended with, that they are opposites. Their reputation is often this friendly, outgoing, wonderful person that everybody should love, because that is the lie they are presenting. That is how they present to others. They're just super special. They're just wonderful. And everybody loves them because they don't know their true character. Their character is who they really are. The reputation that they've developed for themselves, that's the stage play. That is the act. But they don't want you to see behind the act. They don't want you to know who they really are. But I've noticed this time and time again. Narcissists that I've dealt with, not all of them, but many of them, they have a hard time living in the same place. Again, I know narcissists this has no application to, but I know narcissists who can't stay at the same residence more than 6 months or a year. They're constantly on the move. That is because, well, they're constantly being pursued. They don't pay their rent, many of them. They don't pay their bills. Somebody is always after them. Somebody is always chasing them. They have a hard time keeping a job. Yeah, I know other people who can't keep jobs, got nothing to do with being a narcissist, but these people, they just, they go to work and they think everybody should admire them by virtue of the fact that they're there. And so they put on this pretense, this superiority, that they know how everything ought to be organized, they know how everything ought to be done, and they're not patient about it. Now, if somebody, goes to a new job and they actually know how to do things better than everyone else, chances are they have the sense to sit back and to be patient and make suggestions when it's appropriate. But not so with a narcissist. They are in their minds actually superior, even though they actually don't know what they're talking about. But if you happen to believe them, and I got to admit, I hate it. I got to admit, I've fallen for this so many times, it is embarrassing. But if you are gullible enough to believe these people even a little bit, they see you as a mark to be taken advantage of. They put a check mark next to you, and they say, this is going to be my supply. This is going to be somebody that I can take advantage of. And they've got this reputation of being wonderful, and they're just doing that so that people like you and I will believe them. Sad but true, many of us actually do believe them. Sad but true, many of us do fall into that trap. And once we believe them, everything changes. Now, let's stop and think about a mountain. Ask some guys. He's got his gear, he's got his hiking boots on, and he's going to climb the mountain. And you ask him, why are you doing this? And they all say the same thing, right? Because it's there. All right, so the mountain climber gets to the top of the mountain. Now what? Well, it comes back down, right? So the whole purpose of climbing the mountain is to come back down. What does that have to do with anything? Well, stop and think about a narcissist. The whole idea of building you up, of patting you on the back, convincing you that the narcissist is just the greatest guy on the planet, or this is the love interest that you've been looking for all your life. But then once they get you snagged, they're at the top of the mountain. Now what are they going to do? And you think you're at the top of the mountain with them. They're ready to come back down. They're going to drag you down with them. Maybe that's not the best analogy you could come up with, but to me, it fits fairly well. So if you believe them, if you're gullible enough to believe them, expect to come down, and to come down hard. Okay, number 3 is this. This is the number one enemy of virtually every narcissist on the face of the earth, and that is the truth. Now, I want you to think of a narcissist who thinks he or she is the greatest of the great. They think they're attractive, think they're smart, think they are savvy, they think they got their act together. Are they right? I mean, is that true? Well, of course not. I mean, I've known my lifetime, man, I'm almost 70 years old. I've been a lot of places. I've seen a lot of things. One of the reasons I do these videos is because I try to help people with my life experiences. I call it my life's laboratory. And I've never seen the perfect human being. Now, I've seen a few who imagine themselves to be perfect or near perfect. Those are the people we call narcissists. And they're all living a lie. Now, what happens is they create this life scenario. Talked about this a moment ago, but they create this life scenario, this imaginary persona that they create for themselves, to the point where they often believe it themselves. The worst thing that could possibly happen to the narcissist is that the truth gets out. They don't want to acknowledge the truth themselves. And if everyone else can see through their costume, through their act, through their stage makeup, through their mask, what happens then? Well, then they have to admit that they're mere mortals. And that is so devastating to them. It is, well, think of it in these terms. They are dependent. They are dependent on the lie. They are dependent on fooling other people. And if you take away that thing that they are dependent on, well, what are you dependent on? Are you dependent on food? Yeah. Are you dependent on water? Yep. What about sleep? Yeah, gotta have sleep. What would happen if somebody took those 3 things away from you? It would be devastating. Now, what if there is a 4th thing? What if that 4th thing is self-arrogance? What if that 4th thing is the lie that you're the greatest human being that ever existed, in your opinion? In fact, you're so proud of yourself that you will admit that you're humble. You will say that the narcissist will say, yeah, I got flaws. He or she will never point out specifically what those flaws are. It's kind of a blanket statement, you know. But when you lift that cover up and look underneath, what you see is an absolute positive fake. These people, these narcissists, they have their own truth, which is not the truth at all, but it's a myth. It's something they just believe. But the greatest enemy of a narcissist is reality. Now, if you want to take a narcissist down, personally, I got better things to do than fight with these people, and I think you do too. My strategy for dealing with narcissists is get away from them. Simple. If they're going to be there, I'm not going to be unless I have to be. Few exceptions to that. There are some. But if you insist on fighting with a narcissist, and please, I encourage you not to do it. But if you want to take down a narcissist, all you have to do is expose the truth about this individual. That's the nuclear option. That is the kryptonite. That just takes them down. Totally, absolute, positively destroys them. Now, if you look on your screen, you see those 2 rectangles. If you want this conversation to keep on going, all you got to do is click on one of those rectangles, and I keep on talking. But if not, well, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you all next time.